Waking up. What are my social identities? Your many identities are parts of the whole you. One part alone does not define who you are. Some of those parts you create for yourself, other parts of your identity have been created by society. Society is another way of saying community. These identities have been created, named, framed, and defined by society for a very long time. We call them social identities. Your social identity is the you that relates to other people in society. For example, your neighborhood, city, or country. Much of our culture comes from our social identities and the groups we belong to. Categories. Our social identities are broken down into groups or categories that we get lumped into. This is not always our choice. Others may place you in categories even though you may not identify in the same way. This is a way of trying to figure out you and others like you out. It is how our communities and countries have been set up for centuries. While the social identity categories can help us see and understand ourselves and the people around us, they also determine how others will treat us. It is our job to learn and act. First ask, what are these social identities and why do they exist? Analyze them with a critical and conscious eye, and then work to undo why this is our current situation. You have the ability to create a new history. In this book, we will focus mostly on our racial identities, but there are many categories within your identities that affect the way we interact with society. You may be familiar with the following: race, ethnicity, social economic class, gender, age, language, religious beliefs, sexual orientation, nationality, abilities, family structure. The parts of your identity that you notice and are most aware of on a daily basis may change depending on where you are, who you are with, and the experiences you continue to have in life. The identities you do not think much about, even the ones you barely notice, are always with you. Privilege. Some social identities hold power and privilege, others do not. Even within us, there are parts of us that hold some power and other parts that are oppressed. This is why we work to understand our identities within society. We need to always examine our whole selves. The identities that fit neatly into the imaginary box are typically the ones with the most power and agency. One example of where I have some power is the language I speak. I live in a country where the most commonly spoken language is English. I can read and understand signs and directions. I can walk into a school or store, and the folks helping me will likely know what I'm talking about. I don't have to worry. Privilege is the benefits you receive due to how close you are to the dominant culture. For example, a white cisgender man who is able-bodied, heterosexual, considered handsome, and speaks English has more privilege than a black transgender woman. Those with privilege have power over others. Not everyone has privilege. Folks who do not benefit from their social identities, who are in the subordinate culture, have little to no privilege and power. Some of our identities hold privileges and disadvantages at the same time. Because I'm a cis female, I don't have to think about which restroom I will be able to use. I have agency. But because I am female, I do not have the same privileges a cis male has. I am more likely to be overlooked for a position of leadership and get paid less for the same amount of work. While many cis heterosexual men can confidently walk alone at night, I cannot without feeling some fear that I may be harmed. Although I do not have the same privileges as a white cisgender male, I do have privilege trans and non-binary folks do not have because my cisgender identity is closer to the dominant culture. Intersectionality. Looking at intersectionality helps us to understand how our social identities affect our whole life. Kimberly Crenshaw, a black female lawyer, author, scholar, and civil rights activist, used the term intersectionality in 1989 to help us better understand that being a woman and black created greater disadvantages than just being a woman. A black woman is marginalized. Because she is a woman and because she is black, her experiences overlap and cause great harm. When you just look at a person through a single lens, you can only narrowly understand them and their experiences. When you look at all of the parts of a person and where they are oppressed, you will better understand how deeply discrimination advances onward. Knowing who you are, where we hold agency, how our identities came to be, and how they determine our roles in society helps us to understand ourselves and how we can change a system where some folks have privilege and power and some folks are under-resourced and oppressed, to one where we are all liberated. We will learn more about privilege in chapters 15 and 17.